here. Thank you for having HBO here. We've been hoping to do an event in Phoenix for a while, and this all came together quite quickly. So, it's a beautiful masjid. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I was born in 1983 in Phoenix, Arizona. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona all of my life. My father was 18 when I was born. My mother was 17. My mother had this idea that in having a child, my dad would marry her and the two of them would live happily ever after. She believes this because that's what Disney teaches our children. That's not in fact what happened. My father received a possession of marijuana charge just before I was born, and he was locked up in Perryville for about 3 years. So my mother had raised me as Christian years on her own, and it was very hard. She struggled with poverty, alcoholism, and some other problems. When my father did return, he went to work, and he worked hard. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the Arizona sun, he was on the roof, laying tile, laying shingles, roofing. It's a hard job. It's a difficult job, and I respect anybody who does it. On the side, he was still selling marijuana, unfortunately, and he was still partying. He was still young. My mother was still young and still having problems with alcohol, and alcohol grew into being other issues. As life went on, the two of them realized that they had differences that they were not able to work past. They decided that it would be better for me to go live with my grandparents because they were not suited for being parents. They didn't want to be married any longer, and neither one of them felt capable of having a child by themselves. My grandparents were a different story altogether. My grandfather was from England. He was a Protestant, Church of England. My grandmother was a Catholic. She was from the South. Being that the two of them didn't agree on which one of the 33,762 forms of Christianity is right, they didn't tell me that I had to be a Protestant or a Catholic or a Presbyterian or Lutheran, Mormon, Seventh-day Adventist, etc. They told me to think for myself, to value my education, to not be afraid to be an individual. I probably took them a little too serious. I went to Kiva for my elementary school, which is in a very predominantly rich community in Scottsdale. And it was about that time that I started noticing this socioeconomic situation that we go through in America. We sort each other into groups. We categorize. You're either the lower, the middle, or the rich. Well, I was going to a rich school with rich kids, but I wasn't rich. I was poor. So this kind of started creating a schism between me and the student body. Then Christmas came, and I wasn't celebrating Christmas. Well, why aren't you celebrating Christmas? Because I don't celebrate Christmas. My family, we don't celebrate Christmas. It's not a big deal. Do you celebrate Hanukkah? No. I don't celebrate Hanukkah either. Well, what do you celebrate? No. Just live. This isn't an answer that young people can find acceptable. You have to be a label. You have to be a Christian. You have to be a Catholic. You have to be a Jew. You have to be a Buddhist. You have to be something. You can't just be a person. About the time I got into high school, Saguaro, I started dealing with physical issues with the other students. People would use the fact that they were Christians and I wasn't a Christian as a validation for why they could pick on me, to ostracize me, to put me down. I was not one of them. I did not belong with them. And they made sure that I knew that I did not belong with them. Many times I found myself stuck in a locker. Many times I found myself in the principal's office and in trouble because I was defending myself, and then that's just how it goes. Kids are cruel. I'm sure any of the parents in the room have had a day where your child has come home and been picked on you, and you know what I'm talking about. I decided about the age of 14 that if Christianity was the reason that these kids could pick on me and could put me down, that maybe I should learn about Christianity. Maybe I should study Christianity. Maybe I am a Christian. Maybe I want to be a Christian. I should look into this. So I read through the Bible. At the age of 14, my rudimentary understanding of the Bible was essentially that the Christian God is incapable of forgiving. The Christian God can make the world, make all of us, our lives, everything we experience and see, but he can't forgive us. So in order for the Christian God to forgive us, the Christian God had to manifest himself into his own child and come to earth, perform miracles, and then get killed by us. And when he was killed by us, the blood validated forgiveness. And then God was able to forgive us. Then he rose from the dead 3 days later and went off to heaven. Now when I asked the Christian youth group at my high school, this is what you believe, they said, There was too many problems with it. I decided I don't want anything to do with Christianity. It just isn't for me. So then I decided maybe I should study Judaism. We have some Jewish kids at our school too, and they pick on me. Maybe I should study Judaism. Maybe I'm Jewish. Well, the quick thing and the fun thing about that is since I'm a male, I can't become Jewish. So as soon as I figured that out, I stopped studying Judaism. It was very brief. Then I started looking into some of the Eastern faiths, and this concept of an omnipresent, powerful, potent God, this one God, was just kind of an amazing and quandary situation at the same time. Now I'm trying to understand what's it like having 16 million gods. So as soon as I started realizing that, I started asking the Hindus, well, who is it you're praying to when you pray? What do you mean you don't have a regular set prayer? You don't make blessings and such? What are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. How do you know who you're praying to? Who do you pray to for forgiveness? Who do you pray to for blessings? You have a God for every one of these things. Well, who manages all of these gods? Ultimately, what I came to the conclusion of was that religion was not for me. It was not something that I wanted anything to do with. I didn't fit in with any of these groups. They all had their own ideas and their ways of thinking, and none of them were following what they preached. The Christian kids were picking on everybody who was different. If you were an African American, they were picking on you. If you were poor, they were picking on you. If you were Hispanic, they were picking on you. I didn't want to be one of those people. So I decided that I was happy just being myself. I'm Terry. That's it. I'm done. I finished high school a year early. I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts afterwards and attained a degree in audio engineering. About the time I turned 18, I realized that I was essentially going down the same road that my father had gone down. I was staying out all night, I was drinking, I was driving, I was playing pool, I was very promiscuous. I had many bad habits. I didn't want to end up like my father had ended up. I wanted to do something more with my life. Channel surfing one night, I heard a commercial that said, "Be all that you can be." Whoever came up with that slogan, I hope they got a big raise. Be all that you can be. It's simple, it rhymes, it's catchy, one-syllable words, everybody understands it. Be all that you can be. I think the next morning when I woke up, when I was taking a shower, I was scrubbing up and I was still singing that song. Be all you can be in the army. Yeah, that's what I should do. I should go to the army. That's where I should go. That's where I'll be happy. That'll make me into a man. That'll take care of these problems. Then I won't be like my dad. I'll amount to something. I'll be somebody. I'll be productive. I should go to the army. So I went to my recruiter's office, walked in and said, "Hey, I want to join the army." He looks at me and says, "Hey, that's okay. We don't need you." I kind of thought to myself, what? You don't need me? The whole 9/11 thing just happened, and we're going to war with Iraq for some reason. We haven't figured that out 12 years later. We're going to war with Iraq. What do you mean you don't need me? We don't need you. It's okay. I went home and I did some soul searching, and I wondered why this guy said no to me. And then I looked in the mirror and I realized that perhaps having blue hair, being covered in tattoos and piercings isn't what the army wants. So I toned it down a little, bleached my hair, took out some of the piercings, got a long sleeve shirt, came back to the recruiter and said, "Hey, I want to join the army." He says, "Hey, we still don't need you. It's okay." Really? Twice? Wow. Come back a third time. "Hey, I want to join the army." "Why do you want to join the army? Why do you want to join?" "I want to kill people and get paid for it." "What does that mean to join the army?" That's a dumb question. "That's okay. We still don't need you." Believe it or not, I had to go to the recruiters 4 times. And if you think back to 2001, everybody was joining the army. This was the hip thing to do. People didn't have iPhones. They weren't going around texting all day. They were joining the army. I understand. Why would you take this kid who's got blue hair, piercings, and tattoos when you can get the football team? It makes sense. I go in for the 4th time and say, "Hey, I want to join the army." He sees that I'm persistent, and he says, "All right, you know what? I'll let you take your ASVAB." For those of you who don't know what the ASVAB is, it's a standardized government test that allows the government to figure out where they can best exploit you. If you're as smart as a sack of rocks, they'll put you in a motor pool and make you into a mechanic. If you got a bit of a brain on your shoulders, they'll make you into a linguist. If you have a good brain on your shoulders, they'll make you into a doctor or a lawyer. It's 216 jobs in the military. They got a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what I scored when I took my ASVAB, but I know that after I took my ASVAB, every time I was posting on MySpace, my recruiter was the first guy to comment. Every time I was posting on Friendster, he was the first guy to comment. Phoenix Suns and the Lakers made it to the playoffs that year. I don't know if crime, and we had Nash on our team, he was doing well. Who calls me up with courtside tickets? My recruiter. That guy became my best friend. And I made the mistake of asking him, what job is giving a bonus? When you say that to a recruiter, that's the greatest thing they can hear. That is the recruiter version at a humbler level. What job is giving a bonus? Because they know that for a little bit of extra money, you're going to go do some awful job in some horrible place, and you're going to deal with it because you want that money. For a $2,000 bonus, I became a guard in the United States Army. For $2,000. I adapted to the Army well. I enjoyed it. I would never discourage any Muslim from going to the Army. There's plenty of things that can be done that are not combat related. I would never tell any Muslim not to go. I would actually go as far as to say that working in the Army is easier than working at Taco Bell. I'm not joking, it really is. Let's say, for instance, you're working at Taco Bell, and then maybe somebody comes up and they're on their iPhone, so they're not really paying attention when they order, and they say they want burrito supreme. They forget to tell you no sour cream. So you go and you make it the way you're supposed to make it, and you give it to them, and when they realize there's sour cream on it, they say, hey you messed up my food. You put sour cream on this. I bet you're a dropout. I bet you're a dropout in a pothead. You probably got 3 kids with 3 different moms. You don't know who they are. You're probably going to be on welfare in the future. My taxpaying dollars are going to be taking care of you. You are what's wrong with my country. If you want that minimum wage job at Taco Bell, you're going to go remake that burrito, bring it back to them, smile, and say, thank you for telling me how low of a human you think I am. Have a good day. Now in the Army, it's a little different. Maybe you're doing your push-ups, your sit-ups, you're having a little bit of a hard time. You just haven't adapted well. Drill sergeant comes up and he starts yelling at you. Hey, just give up. Just quit now. Go home. Pack up your bags and go home. Uncle Sam doesn't need you in his army. Just go. Go away. We don't need you. We'll get by without you. We'll find somebody else to do the job. You're weak. You're not going to make it. Just quit. All you got to do is pull your stress card out of your pocket and say, no, drill sergeant. And for 5 minutes, your drill sergeant has to leave you alone so you can deal with the stress of basic training. You can't tell the customer to go away. You can't tell the customer no. But you can tell your drill sergeant who's preparing you for war. Taco Bell is harder than the Army. I enjoyed it. I adapted well. Come May of 2003, I found out that I was going to Guantanamo Bay. I didn't think to myself to go home and Google Guantanamo, and if I did go home and Google it, I probably would have spelled it wrong. 98% of Americans spell it wrong. And if I did manage to spell it the right way, I probably wouldn't have found anything because we were still denying that Guantanamo even existed. Guantanamo was still a secret in 2003. I figured the Army would tell me everything that I needed to know for working in Guantanamo. They're not going to send me to a place with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and the worst of the worst and Al-Shabaab without at least explaining to me who these people are and why I should be afraid, why I should be concerned. That's exactly what the Army did in 2 weeks. We spent 2 weeks training to work in a prison unlike any prison anywhere else in the world. 2 weeks. We trained in Fort Dix, New Jersey, which doesn't have a correctional facility. So we made them with plastic pipes and PVC wire and stuff like that. We couldn't use the manual from Guantanamo because it was operational security. It wasn't allowed to leave the island. So they gave us the manual for Fort Knox. Fort Knox holds money, not people. So I was trained real well how to guard money, not people. If you can even believe this, we didn't have any criminals. In New Jersey, we did not have any criminals. So for half the day, I had to play the bad guy, and for half the day, I was the good guy. Needless to say, the training was not that realistic. It was a little subpar. But when it came to the cultural awareness training, the Army told me everything I needed to know. If there were 2 soldiers, 3 soldiers, 4 soldiers together, you better believe somebody was there telling us, do not be complacent when you get to Guantanamo. Do not turn your back. Do not trust the men. Do not talk to the men. They hate you. They hate freedom. They hate democracy. They hate America. They are evil. They are Al-Qaeda. They are the worst of the worst. They will kill you if you turn your back on them. Do not be complacent. We heard this so much that we could start saying it to them before they could even start saying it. We could recite it at the same speed, at the same tonality. We knew exactly what they were going to say. At the end of the first week of that training, the Army did something that's called a morale inventory, where the commander gets together and he talks to the supervisors to see how do the soldiers feel. Do you think the soldiers are ready or going to do well? I can only assume that it wasn't such a favorable conversation. Because that second week of training, we were still hearing Al-Qaeda and Taliban and things like that. But then we also started hearing more colorful words like sand digger, dirt farmer, camelhead, and towel junkie. They wanted to make sure that when we got to Guantanamo, we didn't see humans. We didn't see detainees. We didn't see animals. We saw objects. Because when it's an object, you're not going to hesitate to torture it. When it's an object, you're not going to hesitate to abuse it and to destroy it. Because it's an object, not a human. I'm not saying this to put down our army. That's how every army in the world operates. I understand this. 2 weeks of training comes to an end, and we get on a plane to go down to Guantanamo Bay, leaving from Fort Dix, New Jersey, to go down to Cuba, and we land 45 minutes later. And I think to myself, this isn't right. Did somebody forget to fill the plane, or did a wing fall off? What are we doing landing 45 minutes later? This isn't right. We get off the plane, and there's all these tall buildings, and halal food is on every corner, and there's some rats scurrying around. I realized we were in New York City. Our commander had arranged for us to go to Ground Zero that day. He wanted us to see Ground Zero and see the pictures, to see the comments, to see the flowers and the photos. He wanted us to soak in Ground Zero so when we got to Guantanamo, we would remember why we were there. And as we got back onto the plane, he told us, remember the 3,000 lives that America lost. Remember the 3,000 innocent civilians that woke up and went to work that day and died for no reason. When we get to Guantanamo, don't be complacent. I want you to remember the 3,000 lives that Islam took from us right here. When we get to Guantanamo, remember what the Muslims did. So we're flying down to Guantanamo, I start panicking. I start thinking about this. This is real. I'm going to be in danger. I'm going to get hurt. I'm only 120 pounds. I'm a new guy. I'm just new to the army. This is bad. Why didn't I think about this earlier? How do I get off this plane? I started panicking. I was getting fearful. I started envisioning these men. I started thinking, what's Al-Qaeda? What's the Taliban? What do they look like? I started thinking about this, and in my head I was seeing Charles Heston and Anthony Quinn. I was imagining these men with prolific builds and giant beards, and no matter what way they turned their head, the wind would always be blowing into their beard. They would have giant swords, and they would be ready to kill me. And then we landed and got off the plane and took our first tour of Guantanamo, Camp Delta. When you walk into Camp Delta, the first thing that will hit you, that will overpower you and stop you in your tracks, is the smell of Camp Delta. You have 780 men from 46 different countries all around the world that are sweating upon their sweat, cooking in metal cages 24 hours a day. That's it. They are sitting in a metal cage, cooking in the sun on the Tropic of Cancer all day long. There's no air conditioning. There's nothing shielding them from the sun, any of the environments. They just deal with it. If they behave, they get to shower once a week. But if they misbehave in any circumstance, their shower privilege is the first thing taken from them. The idea being that if these men can't shower, if they don't have wudu, they can't pray. If they can't pray, they're going to give up their information when they go to interrogation. So we take away the shower privileges. So these men smell. Add on top of that all of the guards are alcoholics, and they're all sweating up what they drank the night before, so they stink. Add on top of that the lack of running sewage, so you've got this urine and feces that's been cooking in these PVC pipes for 4 or 5 days. That smells. The smell of Guantanamo will hit you, it burns your eyes, it stings your nostrils, and it does not wash off, it does not go away. It follows you the entire time you are there. Then you add the sound of Guantanamo. You have generators, you have military working dogs, you have 19 languages being spoken at any given time of the day. You have Pashto, Urdu, Uyghur, Punjabi, Farsi, Arabic, French, Italian, Portuguese, anything under the sun being spoken. But none of them are speaking English. No detainee is speaking English. Except one. I heard a detainee 7 cells down on the left-hand side rapping M&M from the top of his lungs. And I started thinking to myself, wait a second. What's this guy doing rapping M&M? He's a Muslim. They hate M&M. They hate America. He can't be rapping. He's a Muslim. This doesn't make sense. I walk up to a cell and I say, hey, what are you doing rapping? You're not allowed to rap. You're a Muslim. And he tells me that when he goes to interrogation, the interrogator will chain him to the ground in a stress position, cover him in a bucket of cold water, and turn the AC down to 40, put a strobe light in front of his face, and put on M&M for 12 hours. 18 hours, however long it takes until he urinates and defecates himself. And at that point, the interrogator will then come into the room and emasculate him, put him down, put down his manhood. Then he'll put down the Prophet, and then he'll put down Islam, and ask him, do you have any information that you want to give up? Of course, this guy doesn't have any information. It's been happening for days and days and days. So in his infinite wisdom, he decided to learn all the words to that song and start singing it when he got to interrogation, hoping the interrogator would stop doing that. This worked out for him. The interrogator didn't stop doing that. Unfortunately, Don Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney came up with some more creative ways of getting information, and worse things started happening to him when he went. My initial problem in Guantanamo was language. I don't even claim to speak English. I speak Americanese. It's what people who speak English speak when they're dumb. So, I speak Americanese. It's kind of like English. But I've written a book. That's the scary part. I don't speak Arabic. I don't speak Urdu or Pashto or Farsi or Uyghur. I don't understand any of these languages. But I have these men, 48 men, every day that I have to do jobs with. I either have to exchange their laundry, serve them food, take them to the shower, take them to recreation, take them to the interrogation, take them to the doctor. I have to do something that involves talking to them. And if I can't communicate with them, how am I going to get my job done? Well, I look over at my supervisor to see what's my supervisor doing. I follow by example. I look over at my supervisor, and he's trying to serve food, and he's yelling at the detainees on the door, hey, you want some food? The detainee's praying at this point, so he doesn't stop. He doesn't acknowledge. He knocks a little louder. Hey, you want some food? Detainee's still praying. Doesn't stop. So he gets frustrated and starts yelling at the detainee, cursing at him, saying things like, you people, you come, you blow up our country, you kill us, and we put you here, we take care of you, we give you food and medicine, you can't even learn my language? What's wrong with you? He gets angry, he drops the food on the ground and walks away. He comes back about an hour later. When he gets about within 3 feet of that cell, he was covered in urine. I didn't want that to happen to me. I didn't want to go home covered in pee every day, so I wasn't going to do that. You start yelling at the detainees, that's what's going to happen? Okay, I'll pass. What's option B? Option B is I can call a linguist and have a linguist come and help me. To get a linguist on the block would take about 10 minutes, and then for the linguist to speak to the detainee, it would take another 5 minutes, so it's looking at 15 minutes to do one simple task for one detainee. I've got 48 guys and a lot of stuff to get done, so that wasn't going to work either. My solution? Let's just learn how to say what they say. I went back and found Eminem, and I said, hey, Eminem, what's that language you guys speak? You speak Arabic, right? How do we say hello in Arabic? K-Pollock. All right, cool. I write down K-Pollock on a 3x5. K-Pollock equals hello. What are those guys? They're from Afghanistan. How do they say hello? Oh, Senge. All right, cool. Senge equals hello. What about those guys? I started asking for each one of the languages that I could find how to say hello, how to say how are you, how to say do you need soap, how to say I need to take you to the doctor, to the interrogation, to recreation. And in taking the step towards the detainees and showing them that I was at least going to respect them enough to say hello to them in their language, my days became much better than everybody else's days. And my unit started noticing this. Every day I was going home clean and dry, and everybody else was going home with poop and pee on them. They started watching. What's Holdbrooks doing? What's he doing that's different? Why is he having such a good day? We need to keep an eye on him. He's probably doing something bad. Well, as you can imagine, having never seen this song before, having never experienced this song before, I was kind of in awe when I got there and saw this. I'm expecting these men that look like Charleston Heston and Anthony Quinn, and the men there look no different from any of you. I'm a little taken back. Hey, Eminem, why is it that you pray, facing that way? What's that way? You think God lives that way? Why do you pray so much? Did you forget something the first time you prayed, so you prayed again? And then you forgot the second time, so you prayed again? Just write it down. Then you won't forget. It's easy. What is that building? Do you think the building is God? Do you think God lives in the building? Why is it you speak English when we talk, but then you pray in that other language? Why are you guys always washing up so much? You're always in your sink washing yourself. You're clean, man. Chill out. Imagine the questions you would have if you'd never seen a Muslim before, if you'd never experienced Islam before. I can embarrassingly admit, I went to Guantanamo, and the only thing I knew about Islam was that Morgan Freeman was a Muslim in Robin Hood. That's all I knew. Detainees would answer my questions. They wouldn't become argumentative. They weren't offended. They weren't upset when I was asking them questions about this song. They wouldn't go into Dawa mode either. They would just answer my question and go about their day. My interest in this song had no bearing upon their day. They just answered the question and continued with business. A couple of months go by and I started looking around and realizing that all of us guards are miserable. We're just unhappy. Everything about our day is unhappy. We're waking up and we're drinking a bottle of vodka to go to work. And then the only thing we want to do is get off of work and go home and drink more and smoke and party and just forget about Guantanamo. We have all the freedom in the world and we're miserable. But these guys that are stuck in this cage all day long, they can deal with it. They can wake up, they can pray. They can believe that somewhere in this universe there's a God that possibly cares about them. And the question starts dawning on my mind, how can they even believe that there's a God? You're in Guantanamo, this is it, you're going to die here. How can you think there's a God? So I decided to start asking, why is it that why do you get up and pray each day? Why do you think that God cares about you, man? You're in Guantanamo, you're never going home. The first detainee told me that it was just Allah testing his deen. I didn't really understand what that meant. What? Allah testing your deen? What is that? I asked another detainee. This is just Allah testing my faith. I asked another detainee. You know, there were men who came before me who had it much worse. This is just God testing me. Each detainee that spoke enough English for me to ask, why do you believe that there's a God who cares about you, told me the same thing. This is just Allah testing me. That kind of piqued my interest. I decided, if I've got all the freedom in the world and I'm miserable, and these guys are going to die in a cage, and they believe that God cares about them, maybe I should learn about Islam. Maybe I should give this on a chance. One particular detainee, his name was Ahmed, decided that it would behoove him to give me his Quran. He wanted me to take his Quran home and read it, because he believed that if I read the Quran, it would answer many of my questions. Or maybe I just had bad breath and he didn't want to talk to me, so he gave me his Quran. I'm not sure which one it is. Now, I already told you about my disposition towards religion. I was not a fan of religion. I didn't believe in God. I went to Guantanamo as an atheist, a happy atheist. I had no consequences. I could do whatever I wanted. There was no consequences. But because he gave me his Quran, I decided that I would at least read it out of respect for him. In Guantanamo, you only get one Quran. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not. There's no Jerusalem publications, there's no Amazon, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no iPhones. You get one Quran when you arrive. Something happens to that Quran, oh well, you don't get another. If a detainee accidentally drops one, you don't get another. If a guard destroys it, you don't get another. If an interrogator sets it on fire or urinates on it, you don't get another. So for him to give me his Quran was a significant, big deal. I decided, all right, let's read it. It took me 3 nights to read the Quran the first time that I read it. And at the end of the 3rd night, I remember thinking to myself, this is the first time in my life I've ever read a religious text that makes sense. From the beginning to the end, it makes sense. It's simple to read, it's easy, I can follow it. There's no magic and nonsense and mysticism, there's no man-made jiggity job. It's an instruction manual for living. Quran is the easiest religious text ever written. Hands down, there's no contest. The easiest one ever. But I wasn't sold. I wasn't ready to be a Muslim. Matter of fact, unfortunately for Ahmed, it had a converse effect. I didn't have less questions. I had more questions. I went back to him the next day and I said, okay, hold on. You got this chapter here, the cow. Dude, that's like Old Testament. You do it in one little chapter. How'd you do that? What's that about? And you guys don't worship Jesus, but you got a chapter named Mary. I mean, Christians don't even have a chapter named Mary. What's that about? I thought you guys hated women. I see it on the news. You hate women, but you got a chapter named Mary in your religious book? What's the deal here? I had many more questions. And he continued to answer them. Other brothers continued to answer them. As I said, they did not become aggressive with me. They just answered my questions. I decided around maybe beginning of December that I think I might want to be a Muslim. I think this is good. I think I want to be a Muslim. These guys can all be happy and they can deal with this place. Maybe I want to be a Muslim. I want to be happy. That's what I want. I want happiness. Stopped drinking a bottle of vodka every day. Went to work without a hangover. And you know what? It was a lot easier to get through the day without a hangover. That's why those Muslims don't drink. Life is easy when you're not hungover. I get it. Stop smoking a pack of cigarettes each day and you can run better. You feel better. That's why those Muslims don't smoke. I get it. Each one of these little steps that I was doing, each one of these little steps in my life that I was changing to come towards this song, my life was getting much better. December 29th came and I decided that I wanted to embrace this song. I didn't know how I would embrace this song, but I wanted to be a Muslim. I knew that. So I decided that I would find Ahmed and I would ask him. I was working the night shift that particular night, and I got to work and I saw him on my block and I was very happy. And I said, hey, Ahmed, thank you for giving me the Quran. I read it and it made a lot of sense. I've been making these changes and whatnot, and I think I want to be a Muslim, and I appreciate if you can help me. What do I got to do? How do I become a Muslim? And he turns around and he looks at me and he says no. Not a mad no, not an upset no. He just says no. And I thought back to the recruiter. I had to go see that recruiter 4 times. I did all the work for him. I was ready to join. And now here's this detainee saying no to me. I'm ready to be a Muslim. I'm willing. I'm able. I'm right here. And he says no. Why did he say no? Why do people keep saying no to me? What is it about me they don't like? I went about my business. I had to clean the block. I came back about an hour later and I said to him, you know, Ahmed, you gave me a Quran. You knew that this day was going to come. You knew that I was going to come and ask you this. I want to be a Muslim. How do I do it? How do I become a Muslim? Tell me. I want to be a Muslim. And he looks at me and he says, why do you want to be a Muslim? It's a fair question. It's a legitimate question. If I walked outside right now and somebody said, hey, I want to be a Muslim, I say, why? Why do you want to be a Muslim? You know what you're talking about? Why do you want to be a Muslim? He asked me why, and I probably said some of the dumbest things anybody has ever said about wanting to be a Muslim. I started talking about hummus and falafel, which are some of my favorite foods. Aladdin is the all-time greatest Disney movie ever made. You know, I want to learn Arabic so I can talk about people behind their back without them knowing what I was saying. He's just like, brother, shut up. Sit down, let me see. You have an American flag on your shoulder. You know how your country's going to look at you if you become a Muslim? You're in the army. You know how the army is going to look at you if you become a Muslim? You have a ring around your finger. What do you think is going to happen between you and your wife if you become a Muslim? Half the time you come to work, you smell what you drank the night before. You've got nicotine stains on your fingers. You talk like a sailor. You're covered in tattoos. Do you really understand what you're doing? Do you really understand what it means to be a Muslim? Are you sure you want to be a Muslim? I'm an 18-year-old white man. I'm from America. Yeah, I know everything. I definitely want to be a Muslim. I know all there is. I'm ready. I just don't know that all I have to do is say shut up. So I give him a 3x5 card and a pen. He wakes up the detainee in the cell next to him. And in the middle of the night, in the dark, while wearing handcuffs, he transliterates the Shahada for me and gives it back. And he tells me, you need to say this, and you need to mean it sincerely. And if you do, you will be a Muslim. I look at the card and try what does it say? It says that there is only one God, Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. That's it? Alright, cool. A shadow, Anna? Who's Anna? You guys ever told me about this Anna character? Oh, I'm not. Okay. A shadow, what does this say? Those are eyes. Oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. I think I just wrote LA a bunch of times. Shadow, It took me a while. I'm sorry. I think in like the 7th, maybe 8th try, I knew I finally said it right with his face lit up and the other detainees face lit up, and they started saying all these words that ended in Allah. I didn't know what they were saying, but they're smiling and they're happy. They're saying these words that ended in Allah. You know, Alhamdulillah, mashallah, subhanallah. Alright, yeah, cool. We're going to listen for 4 seconds. I don't know what that means, but okay. And then I sat there without that, and I think I had what may be the most important conversation I've ever had in my life about Islam. He told me, when you get back to the States and you go home, you're going to find a masjid, you're going to go there. They're going to tell you how to dress. They're going to tell you what to eat. They're going to tell you how to pray. They're going to tell you who to marry. They're going to tell you where to work. They're going to tell you how to fast. They're going to tell you how to break your fast. They're going to tell you everything that you have to do with your life, but they're not going to tell you why. The dogma does not make Islam. Islam is in the Quran. Islam is in here. It is not what the community tells you Islam is. I didn't understand what he was talking about at that point. I didn't really get it until I did come home and I experienced it and I saw it. When I see reverts coming to the masjid and we correct them, what's that on your head? You got Beats by Dre? No music in my Islam, take that off. What are you wearing shorts? No. Go get some pants. No shorts in my Islam, take down. Get rid of that, get out of here. We're quick to correct. We're all haram police. We don't embrace, we don't explain the reasons why Islam is as it is. I would still be complaining today about praying 5 times a day if I didn't know that we were supposed to be praying 50. 5 is a lot better than 50. I'll take that any day. Alhamdulillah. Hi. I went home that night and I thought to myself, things finally make sense. I got a purpose. I got a goal. I'm working towards something. And I had the next 2 days off, so I did some reading, did a little bit of research. My commander came over. He knocked on my door and he said, "Hey, what are you doing looking up all that Islam stuff on the computer?" And for a commander to come and talk to a private, it's very out of the norm. This is a total breach of protocol in the military. A commander doesn't talk to a private. A private doesn't talk to a commander. There's a whole chain of command that goes through this. So my first question was, am I in trouble, sir? Did I do something wrong? No, I just want to know. Why do you want to know about Islam? So I started thinking of an excuse real quick in my head, and you have Sun Tzu in the Art of War. He said to know thy enemy. I just want to know about my enemy. And he left me alone. And then the next day, my platoon sergeant came over, and he asked me the same question. Why do you want to learn about Islam? Why do you want to learn about these guys? They're animals. They're horrible people. Why do you want to learn about this stuff? Forget about it. You need to stop learning about this. Monday came, and I went to work, and I was hoping that there would be one guy in my block that spoke English. I just needed one English speaker. I only knew about 15 guys in the entire 780 that spoke English. So I was hoping one of them would be in my block, because I had to learn how to pray. I'm a new Muslim. I gotta pray. I got years of catching up to do. I walk onto the block and almost in unison, every one of them says, "SubhanAllah, you're a Muslim now, you're one of us, you have the deen." And my jaw drops. And I look at them like, "You guys are going to joke. You all speak English? Every one of you speaks English? You have a degree from Oxford? You're a doctor? Why didn't you guys speak English this whole time? The last 6 months I've been trying to speak English with you and you won't talk to me. Why? Dude, you remember the other day you spent 10 minutes talking about soap? I walked up and said, "Do you need some soap?" And he looked at me and said, "Soap?" I said, "No, soap. You need soap." "Soap?" "No, soap. Like, wash yourself." "Soap?" "Yeah, I want to give you a card. You're a detainee." "No, soap." I didn't know there's no P in Arabic. Soap. And you speak English. You guys all speak English. All right. I remember that with dinner. Since the English fairy came and taught everybody English overnight, I decided to start asking everybody questions now. I wanted to learn everything that I could. 46 different countries from all around the world, you better believe I'm going to ask them questions. What's life like in your country? What did you learn in your country? What was high school like in your country? Did you even go to high school? You're a doctor, you're a pharmacist, you're a lawyer, you're a physician. Oh wow, this is awesome. What are you guys doing in Guantanamo? Why are you here? What's the deal? Why are you in Guantanamo? And every single detainee told me the same thing. I'm innocent. I don't know why I'm here. Well, of course, yeah, you're innocent. Everybody in jail is innocent. Sure, I believe. No, really, what you couldn't tell me? They kept saying they were innocent. It's been 10 years now since I left Guantanamo. 10 years since I said my shahada. And in that 10 years, we have sent 80% of the population that was in Guantanamo home. It's approximately 620 million. You can say, "Alhamdulillah, go ahead, it's good, this is a good thing, they've gone home." Out of the 160 some that are still there, half of them are clear to go home. The problem is the U.S. didn't think about what to do with men from Yemen, men from Somalia, men from Mali. What do we do with these men after we've tortured them for 12 years, 13 years? Where do we send them? We don't want to send them home and see them get recruited and become evil against us and be angry. What do we do with them? The government didn't think about that when they started this. The government didn't think about that when they purchased the men in Guantanamo. I said purchase. We bought every one of the men that's in Guantanamo. We bought them from other prisons, from other countries. My question to you as an audience is, what do you think we're going to do with a $46.5 million state-of-the-art correctional facility that has no rules when we send the last of these men home? What do you think we're going to do with them? Give it to Cuba? In a perfect world. Anyone else? Who do you think we're going to fill it back up with? Muslims from where? That brings me to my second talking point. I work with the Muslim Legal Fund of America. I work with them because I believe in them and I believe in what they do. Anybody in this room know Marwan Zadani? Anybody in this room know Sheikh Ahmed Shokrat? We've defended them. We've kept them out of harm's way. Anybody in here heard of the Irvine 11? 11 students who were speaking truth to power in the University of California. There was an Israeli ambassador who was coming here talking about why Israel should be occupying Palestine, and they got up and interrupted it. We're defending them. Anybody know Afia Siddiqui? We're defending her. Anybody know the Homeland Foundation? Largest Muslim charity in 2001 until President Bush shut it down. We're defending them. I work with the Muslim Legal Fund of America because they are doing what we are failing to do. They are standing up and defending Muslims in America. If your neighbors don't know that you are a Muslim, you are failing your job as a Muslim. It is incumbent upon you to give to give dawah. It is hard upon you to give dawah. You can't just hope that somebody else in the community does it. None of the detainees gave me dawah. What led me to Islam was seeing Islam, was seeing Muslims, was seeing the joy and happiness that they possess. That is what led me to Islam. Not logic, not reason, not a book. If your neighbors and your co-workers don't know that you're a Muslim, you should fix them. I met Eugene at home in 2007. I wrote a book about my time in Guantanamo entitled Traitor, because many people in this country seem to think that I am a traitor. I served in my country's army, I went to Guantanamo, I became a Muslim. That makes me a traitor. I'm a bad guy now. Ahmed was obviously a big part of my book because he gave me the Quran, he answered my questions, he led me to Islam, I said my shahada with him. When I wrote this book, I wanted to get his feedback before I published it. Did he not want me to use his name? Did he want me to leave him out of it? Was it okay if I used his name? Was it okay if I described him? His response is the foreword for my book. The example of Islam is like that of a beautifully scented, colorful tree, because when grown, it develops many things that people come to benefit from, such as shade and fruit, unique scents and beautiful colors to enjoy. Now imagine if this tree, every time that it begins to grow, is crushed and uprooted. And people are told to be careful of it, for it is a harmful, poisonous tree. And if it grows, it will destroy them with its poisonous essence. Eventually, the people would grow accustomed to staying away from its beauty, from staying away from the tree. Those who lost out would lose out, and those who stayed away would never come back to the tree's beauty. However, soldiers were still about this tree and asked for it and its benefits in the worst of places, where no tree or plant ever grows, only hostility and hatred between people, in a place called Guantanamo Bay. The prisoners wore suits and chains, not stop Holdbrooks from becoming close to the prisoners and discussing Islam with them. He was brave in his approaches and in his questioning. I was amazed by his free mind, which was not like mine. His logic was clear, and he was not confused with false claims and prejudices. The arrogance and love of power over the prisoners did not overtake him as it overtook many of the other soldiers. And instead, he grew to detest the abuses, for he saw what his colleagues didn't see, and he found what the other guards didn't find. He was adamant to continue his search because he loved the description of that tree. He saw the effect it had amongst the prisoners, and he wanted to He wanted the tree that wanted him. It is the happiness that overcomes the simple lost servant, and he finds the forgiving and kind Lord waiting for him. I'm ready to achieve you. Just like that hero, thank you for showing up.